Well, The End of Us is so quirky. It's very interesting rom-com. What was it about this particular character or about the premise itself that drew you to be a part of this?
Well, what drew me to be a part of it was really the people behind it. I had worked with Stephen and Henry at BuzzFeed previously. I had made a lot of videos with Ben, just like sketches and short films, and I loved working with Ben. And it was during a time where I was really creatively drained. I was really burnt out from my job writing, and also COVID had just happened, and I was like I'm like buttoning my shirt. I'm like, that's too low. I was trying to do it casually, and then I was like, no, everyone can see that I'm doing
Yes.
that. But yes, so I was creatively really like craving something to be a part of. They brought me this idea. I thought it was like a super fun and simple idea that we could actually execute and do it on our own without depending on financiers or anything like that. And they were also really open to working with me on the character. I really liked the idea of getting to play just the comedy of it and getting to improvise, getting to do everything from, like, yes, I'm sort of like the type A, like, which I do love playing, like a type A, like sort of control freak, but also that I get to have a meltdown. I get to my character gets to change, and, it ultimately, a satisfying arc to play as an actor. So I was drawn to the project initially just because of the team behind it and wanting to make something. And then once we actually got to building the script and building the story, I was really excited to play a character who has that arc and also is different from me. There's a lot of moments where I'm like able to, not be myself, which is great.
You touched on it a bit, which leads to my next question, was how much of this is scripted and how much were you allowed to improvise?
I mean, we were allowed to really do whatever we wanted because they're great and they like are, the filmmakers just trusted us and we trusted them. But there was like a very structured story of what they wanted to happen, what the character arcs should be. They really, like, the film was not a traditional script in the sense that every scene was scripted. It was more of an outline, beat by beat. Here's what happens in this scene. Here's what happens in that scene. The opening scene of the breakup was scripted, and there were a couple other scenes where, in order to push the story forward, we really needed to make sure we had a script. But for the most part, the way we approached the film was, this is what needs to happen in this scene. You guys are going to Skype with a doctor. You're going to talk about this. You're going at the end of this scene, here's how we're going to lead to the next one. And then we just had fun. And then we just improvised, and it was always story first. It wasn't like, just say a bunch of stuff and be kooky. It's like, okay, here's what we need from this scene. Here's the story beat we need. And then within that, we were able to improvise. So, I think when people think like scripts, like, it wasn't written in the sense that, like, yes, the dialogue was largely improvised, but writing a script is really coming up with a story, breaking the story, like figuring out, those beats, which Henry and Cantor 100% did on their own. And they came up with a lot of jokes as well. So it was very collaborative.
There is such great chemistry between Nick and Leah, despite the fact they're at odds with each other and on the verge of splitting up. Talk about what you put into making that connection while also still trying to make them at that odds.
Well, breakups are, you don't just stop loving someone overnight. And I think that especially someone you've been dating for that long, and you're in a national crisis. And I think that's something that was really important to me, was no matter how at odds we were with each other, the fighting we were doing, there was still love that was present and that was visible between us. Because I think unless this breakup it was a pretty bad breakup, but nobody cheated on each other. There was no deep betrayal. So I think it was important to me from a performance point of view to maintain some semblance of, like, here's why these people loved each other, so that ultimately it is a movie about moving on and about letting go and about how hard it is to break up and how hard it is to lose someone. So yeah, I think that's why the chemistry is sort of present throughout. I think Ben and I also like have worked together a lot. We've always had great chemistry. We love improvising together. We love working together. We adore each other. Like I love Ben as a person. So I think there's just some natural chemistry that we're able to play off of. So that is an added benefit of, you know, we already knew that existed. Yeah, exactly. We didn't have to create it.
You do have such great comedic timing. Is it something that's just always been a natural ability for you, or is it something you've even had to work at?
Thank you. I don't even know how to answer it. I mean, I guess I did take a lot of improv classes when I was in my, you know, younger, like early 20s. I did UCB for, you know, 4 or 5 years. So it's definitely something that I've honed and that I've, you know, practiced a lot. And performing is something that I, you know, performing improv and sketch is something that I really love. I think it's probably a natural thing combined with the years of training and all of that. I often think that when I don't try to be funny is the only time I'm capable of being funny. So yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, Leah's so focused on her career at the moment. Is that what she feels is the true divide between her and Nick at the time?
I think that I thought of it as sort of a metaphor for a deeper view of how they see the world. Whereas when Leah does lose her job and suddenly she doesn't have this thing to point to for her value, she's sort of lost because she doesn't know how to exist without her career. So I think ultimately the thing that breaks them up is that she feels like she has to manage their relationship. She's basically acting like his mom, and she's sort of turning 30. She's ready to move on to the next stage of her life. And I think he is sort of stuck in this childlike, you know,
Peter Pan syndrome.
Peter Pan syndrome, the childlike way he behaves in the world. So I think ultimately she feels like she can't move forward without breaking up with him. And I think he feels like the breakup sort of kicks him into gear of, okay, I have to change myself too. Maybe they get back together one day. I don't know.
Anything is possible.
It's true.
What were some of your hardest scenes, most challenging, or even maybe then some of your favorite scenes you got to film?
Mm-hmm. The hardest scene for me, was the scene where we have our big blow up fight at the end, because my dog was there that day, and he was the senior dog who we adopted just months previously. He was like really old. He had a lot of health issues, and he was freaking out about being in this house. Like he didn't know, he'd never been anywhere like besides our apartment because it was like COVID since we adopted him from the shelter. So he was like very stressed out, and he was in the other room, and like I was just thinking about him the whole time, and I was like, okay, I just want to get this scene done with. And it's like the most important scene in the movie, and it turned out, honestly, I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I think it was great. But like I remember the stress I felt that day because I was just like, I just want to go make sure he's okay and like help him, and like and he like peed on the floor because he was nervous. And then they were like mad that, I mean, they weren't mad, but I felt bad that he peed in the Airbnb. So, you know, it was just like a chaotic day. That was definitely hard. And and you know what else was hard was when the scene where spoiler alert, the scene where we kissed, because like, first of all, it's just like hard because it was like, okay, just like we were improvising. So it wasn't like there was no script. So they were just sort of like, we just want you to like make it like happen and then just like kiss naturally. And like, it was COVID, right? So I was like, I can't kiss someone, I'm gonna get COVID. Like I was like so nervous. I was like, can we make sure the kiss is like towards the end? So we've already quarantined for 2 weeks before we have to kiss. Like it was just a different time when we shot it. My favorite scenes to shoot were, I love the sequence where I sort of have like my panic attack and get to sort of like freak out. And like, that was really fun. The doctor Skype was really fun. The scene where we're doing the masks outside was really fun because Claudia actually made, our producer Claudia actually had made all those masks and was like so crafty. And I was like, so like, there's a moment in the scene where he's like, what are you doing? And I was like putting the pins in wrong. And that's literally because I had no idea how to put it in. And I had been doing
you never
wrong.
made them.
Yes, no. So yeah, and the whole sequence where we're like dancing and like drinking, and when we go to the beach, like that whole sequence was a blast as well.
What do you think it is about The End of Us that's going to make it such a quick, fast, fan favorite rom-com?
I think that there's such a deep relatability to it for so many people who have sort of lived through the past couple years. And I think also it is a rom-com, but again, spoiler alerts, but it's a rom-com that is really takes a complicated view of, I think, love. And like, they don't just end up together at the end. Like maybe these two people aren't actually right for each other, and maybe that's okay. And there can be beauty in the fact that they've created this friendship and they have this shared respect for each other, and that they, you know, it's not necessarily about whether or not you end up with someone. It's the right choice you make for yourself, and it's the right choice you make for each other, which sometimes isn't being together, but you can still love and cherish a friendship with the person and respect them and move on with your life. And I think that that's a cool message. And I think sort of taking a look at how hard it is to break up and how hard it is to change your life and change your circumstances is something that most people can relate to.